Welcome to Trials and Triumphs, the series that dives deep into the heart of public education K-12. I'm Maria, a life coach, a school counselor, and a catalyst for change in education. I have 30 years of experience on the front lines supporting teachers, parents, and students to transform how they relate to themselves, their lives, and most importantly, to each other. We're on a mission to shine a light on what's really happening in schools. We're here to uncover the trials, celebrate the triumphs, and reimagine what's possible for kids. If you're a parent, a teacher, or care deeply about education, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. We want you to join this conversation. Today, I am so excited. I am joined by Kristie, the founder of Modern Moai, who'll be speaking about the importance of social connection and her personal journey with loneliness into a movement to foster intentional social connection. Let's dive in. Hello, Kristie. How are you? Welcome.
Thanks, Maria. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you. I'm so excited about this episode. Now, Kristie, can you share what inspired you to create Modern Moai and what the name represents?
Sure. So my journey to creating Modern Moai begins a couple of years ago as we were just emerging from the pandemic. And I was feeling this feeling that I'd never felt before, which eventually I would come to realize was loneliness. During the pandemic, I was laid off twice. I started 3 new jobs, and one of my best friends in the neighborhood moved away. And I just had this sense of feeling disconnected. I knew lots of people, but I just didn't have any close friends. I'd lost touch with a lot of them over the last few years, and I was just feeling disconnected. One night, my husband and I were sitting down to find something to watch on Netflix, and we came across a documentary by Dan Buettner called Live to 100, The Secrets of the Blue Zones. Are you familiar with what a blue zone is?
I know that there's a blue zone in Japan where people live long lives and they look at the factors that have them live these long lives.
Yeah, exactly. A blue zone there's 5 of them in the world, and researchers have found a high number of centenarians, so people who live to 100 and beyond. So the 5 blue zones are Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Loma Linda, California, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Okinawa, Japan. And so Dan Buettner and his group of researchers set out to find out what was contributing to the longevity of these folks. And as you can imagine, they found that there are things that you would expect. Diet, exercise, and daily movement were some of the main factors contributing to longevity, and sleep and all of those things. But the one that stuck out for me was social connection. And in particular, in Okinawa, Japan, they have what's called a group of people who meet for a common purpose. And in Okinawa, when people are children, they assign moai to them, and they go through life together. They've got their group of people that they can turn to for support when life gets tough. And in the documentary we were watching, you see these folks who are 90 years old, 100 years old, that have been friends for decades. And they've got this strong social bond that they've realized is a protective factor and contributes to longevity. And as I was watching the documentary, I said to my husband, oh my gosh, maybe that's what I need. I think I'm lonely and I need a moai. But before I get into talking about moai, can I just share a little bit about the stigma and the courage it actually took to admit I was lonely? We do not, in our sort of modern society, there's a lot of stigma attached to being lonely. It took me a little while before I could actually admit that to myself. So it's not something that we commonly talk about. And so when I realized I wanted to start a moai, I thought to myself, who am I going to share this with? Who am I going to admit that I want to create some friends and create a group of people to meet on a regular basis? So I reached out to my one friend, Frances, and I said, I'm thinking of doing this thing. I'm thinking of creating a moai. I've been feeling really disconnected. What do you think? Would you be interested? And she immediately was like, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. I'm in. So the two of us set out to figure out how are we going to create a moai? And we came up with a list of names of people that we knew, figuring that we'd of course get some no's. And we decided I'll ask one person and she'll ask one person, and we'll keep going through the list until we get a group of 4. And the first person I asked was Kelly, and the first person she asked was Tabitha, and they were both immediately, heck yes, we're in. We want to do this. So we started meeting once a month at a local coffee shop and just connecting. And the first time we did it, we felt so alive. I just felt so energized afterwards. I knew we had stumbled upon something for sure that was missing from my life. And I figured that there was maybe missing from others as well. And that was confirmed when we started to share with people what we were up to, and that we were meeting once a month, and we've created our little moai. And every time we talked to people, they were like, wow, that's really cool. I need one too. Can I join? And we'd have to say, actually, sorry, but no, you can't, because a moai is a small group of people who meet for a common purpose. And that wouldn't be a moai anymore. And that's when we created Modern Moai. We knew there was a need for people to feel connected. And so we've created this little movement to inspire others to create Modern Moai so that they can intentionally foster that connection in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, that is so inspiring to hear that you're a parent, you've got a husband, and even within like your family connection, you were actually present to when you watched a Netflix episode that you fessed up, like you confessed that you were actually lonely and that there was something missing. And then what's really inspiring is that you took actions to create this moai, to create connection, and that has had a real positive impact on your life.
Yeah, it really has. We've been meeting for over a year now, and it is something that is scheduled in our calendar that we don't miss unless there's a family emergency or somebody's sick. And we look forward to it every month. And we've been able to go beyond I don't know about you, but I have lots of friends that I try and connect with, and it just takes so much effort to create that calendar invite or to meet for coffee. And it takes us a really long time to get together. And then when we finally get together, it's been so long that we're just doing status updates to update each other on what's going on with the kids and the family and the job and all of those things. And then the next thing you know, it's another 3 months before we see each other again. But with my Modern Moai crew, we meet regularly once a month, and we're able to go much deeper and create that real social support.
And that just brings up that I think I created my own moai with my book club that meets once a month. Many years ago, I decided that I wasn't connecting with my friends who actually live in the same city that I live in. And I decided that I needed an excuse for them to connect with me because I was feeling isolated. And what I did was I invited them over for dinner, and they didn't know why they were there. And I proposed that we start a book club where we meet once a month. We rotate which house we're going to be, who's hosting it within the group. And that group's been going on for many years, and it was really great. And it was just a great opportunity for us to connect and to be with each other.
Yeah, and a moai can be a group of people that meet for coffee. It can be surrounded around a book club. It can be a group that goes for a walk. The thing that we promote in Modern Moai is deeper connection. And that's what happens over time as you're connecting with your people, reading the book or not. I know your book club reads their books from what I remember, but it's that bonding and creating those repetitive, intentional opportunities to connect. And you grow stronger as friends that way, for sure.
Yeah. And I know from studies that isolation, there are unprecedented levels of isolation, and those numbers went up during COVID and after COVID. What is the impact of isolation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You're right. There's unprecedented levels of social isolation. So much so that in 2023, the World Health Organization declared loneliness a global public health concern. And they asked the then U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, to head up a commission to figure out what is at the root of all of this loneliness. Why are we so lonely? We're in a world today that is so digitally connected, but why are we so lonely? And we know there's some really staggering statistics out there. some Canadian statistics that 1 in 10 people age 15 or older said that they always or often felt lonely. And that study was in 2021. And we know that 15% of women felt lonely as well. And we know that close to half of those people who reported often or always feeling lonely reported that their mental health was either fair or poor. So this sense of disconnection from each other is really contributing to this overwhelming sense of disconnect and isolation. There's also some studies out there that have shown that our numbers of close connections are decreasing. This is pre-COVID, where it started to decline over the decades before then. And our willingness to participate in social activities has declined as well. So COVID made all of that worse for those of us who are like, okay, I'm happy to work from home and never leave again. It might feel like a really nice comfort zone, but it's also doing us a bit of a disservice when we're not connecting in person with real live human beings as well. So there's a pretty profound impact.
And what's the difference between in-person intentional social events versus how we're connected to so many people through technology, through the computer, through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through Instagram? Like, I have it that is a way to connect, but it's got a different flavor.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think it comes down to quality versus quantity, right? We're looking at how many contacts do we have? How many friends do we have? How many likes do we get? And that's a very different form of connecting than if you're actually in front of a real live human. I don't have any stats on this, but I know for myself, I share differently when I'm in front of someone. There's different social cues that we get when we're interacting with a real human person. So I think there's definitely a difference. And I think although we can feel like we just want to stay in the comfort zone and stay behind our screens, it really does. I invite people to try it, right? To just make that effort to connect with people, and you just feel differently. You just feel alive after. It's a very different experience than when we meet virtually.
Yeah, so there's a study that was done in regards to communication, and 10% of our communication with other humans is verbal. The 90% of it is everything else. And I think this is what's missing when we talk about being connected with other people through social media. It is not the same thing. It is distinct. And I know for myself, I can't really get to know someone that I've never met in person before, or that I have met in person. I can't really have that relation go at a deeper level when it's through technology and texts and messages and Facebook posts. That just doesn't work.
Yeah, and technology plays a really important role in our modern world, but we just can't forget to connect in person and to take the time to put that intentionality behind our social worlds. It's just important to build that social connection. I think we've forgotten how important it is because we think maybe we're getting what we need from the online interactions. But I think we're starting to realize a little bit more, we're a little bit off. Something doesn't feel right, or something feels missing. And if I would invite your listeners and your audience to consider, there might be an opportunity there the in-person connection might be missing.
Yeah. And I know from my conversations with parents and educators is that they feel like they're too busy for meaningful social interaction. So what would you say to people who believe that they simply don't have time and they're too busy and they don't see a pathway to actually connect with other people?
Yeah, what I would say is start with one person. Find someone that you either wish you saw more often. Maybe it's an old friend or somebody that you just don't see on a regular basis anymore that you'd like to see more often and connect with them. Or if you're new to an area, or maybe it's somebody new, you're like, I'd love to get to know them better. start with one person. When I reached out to Frances, it actually took some social courage to be vulnerable and share that I was feeling a bit lonely and disconnected. And it takes one person. I think you'll be surprised how many people are actually feeling the same way and feeling like that might be missing. But it takes one of us to be the one to go first to say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And in my experience, and the folks that have come to our info sessions and have started their own Modern Moai, once they get over that threshold and get the courage to find that one person that they'd like to connect with on a regular basis, they're often shocked at how easy it was and how often people are feeling the same way. And if you can start with one person and meet once a month, maybe brainstorm some names of others if you want to form a little bit of a group. Having 3 or 4 people, the reason we've got 3 or 4 people is the magic number we say in Modern Moai is because it keeps us accountable to each other. If it's just 2 people, it's very easy for one person to cancel and it not to happen. 3 to 4 people is a really nice number. Because it's schedulable, right? Everyone's really busy. I completely get that. When you've got 3 or 4 calendars to find alignment with, it's a little bit easier than more than that. And any less than that, you just get off the hook a little bit easier. It's just start with one person, connect. And even if you're just meeting that person regularly once a month, every couple weeks, if it's at school, maybe it's after school on a Thursday and you go for coffee or go for a drink or just connect or go for a walk even. That is one way to just try and build it into your everyday life so that it's something that gets scheduled in your calendar and happens.
Those are really great practical trips. Those are really great practical tips. Those are really great practical tips. I don't know why I can't say that. That's a really great structure to offer to our listeners out there. Can you share where, someone moved from isolation to meaningful connection?
Yeah, I can share my story because I knew I was feeling blah and I didn't realize it was loneliness. I would never have considered myself to be a lonely person. I have a family. I'm surrounded by people at work. I've got colleagues. I do have friends, but I was feeling this longing for deeper connection. And so when I created our Moai, like I shared earlier, after the first one, I just felt so alive and energized. And it's almost like until you do it, you don't realize how bad it was or how much it was missing before. And that's really what transformed my experience. And I knew we needed to share it with people because everybody that I talk to, the more people that I talk to, I find people who are experiencing that same sense of either social isolation, which, by the way, is a precursor to loneliness, and loneliness, where we're just we have this subjective experience of being alone and it doesn't feel good. And we need each other. There's a whole bunch of research out there that shows that loneliness is actually just a signal that we need connection with people. It's similar to hunger and thirst, right? We know if we're hungry, we should eat. But we also know if we're lonely, we need to connect with people. And so it's really all it is. It's a sign that we need more connection.
And what challenges or resistance do people usually come up against when they're wanting deeper social connections? And how can they overcome these challenges?
I think there's two big ones. One is the stigma around loneliness. That seems odd or strange or weird to go reach out to someone. Like as adults, it's hard to say, do you want to be my friend? When we were kids, it was so natural. You see this at school all the time. Hi, I'm Jonah. Do you want to be my friend? Yes, great. Okay, hi, we're best friends. Like it doesn't take much for kids to connect. And there's all these social parameters around what we should do when we're adults. And it's hard to make friends. So the stigma around loneliness to start. Second of all, it's difficult to put yourself out there and muster up the social courage to say, hey, I'd really love to connect. Do you want to go for coffee? It feels so difficult, but at the same time, it's so welcomed by other people. And you might get a no. That's the risk that you take. That's why it takes courage. And if you do, that's okay. Not everybody is looking for new friends. Some people have really strong social bonds. Not everyone is lonely, but people are out there looking to connect a bit more intentionally. And I would say The other barrier is time. It feels, oh, I don't have time. I'm sure your audience is like, what do you mean? I teach full time. I've got my own kids. I'm trying to stay healthy, and you've got a grocery shop. But there's all these like responsibilities that we have. But there's little windows and little opportunities. If we look at how much time we spend scrolling or watching Netflix, I am guilty. There's still those little windows of time where we can squeeze in a half an hour walk with a friend or coffee with a couple of friends. So it's just really creating those opportunities and just looking objectively at our calendars and what we prioritize. If it's important to you, you'll prioritize it.
Yeah, I can see how myself, when you're talking, I can see what my barrier is time. And I also know how great and nourishing and juicy it is to be with other people. I really look forward to those times with my teaching colleagues when we organize let's go out Friday night and go have a drink, go have coffee. I really enjoy it when I meet with the school counselors, and we do that also. And we have an opportunity to engage in ways that's not necessarily about talking about work or the students, that we're actually just talking about each other and being related to each other and getting to know each other. I want to know whether people have kids or not. I want to know whether people are in a partnership or not. I want to know what they like to do. I want to know what their favorite food is. I want to know what they do when they're not at work, what kind of holidays they went on, what hobbies do they have? Do they like kayaking? I really enjoy those opportunities, and I can see how my story is that I don't have time. And that's something that I'm going to take on in regards to fostering more connections that are intentional with other people.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. And I think we assume everyone else is happy and living their best life, right? Because we don't post the other stuff on Instagram. It's just the happy stuff. So we're looking through these reels going, okay, those people have so many friends because they've got a cottage or whatever. And so it stops us from reaching out because we're assuming everybody else is happy. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. But you bring up also a really good point around connecting within our community. So there's a really great study that was done out of UBC, actually, by Gillian Sandstrom. And her team had this theory that we were missing out on sources of happiness and joy when we're not interacting with what they call weak ties. So those are the people that we interact with on a daily basis, like at the grocery store, or your barista when you get your coffee in the morning, or the bus driver when you take the bus to work. And so they asked a group of people to engage in conversation with their barista and then basically rate their happiness scores. And what they found was their theory was right. When we engage in small talk or interactions with people that we come across during our daily lives, we actually improve our happiness scores. And they also found that people had a better overall buying experience when they bought their coffee. There's this intentional connection with going deeper with friends, but there's also this kind of creating this sense of community and engaging with the world around us. So many times when we're standing in line at the grocery store now, we're down looking at our phones. If we're waiting for our coffee, we're checking our email. So it's like, look up and look around and see if you can make eye contact with someone. That might feel a little bit scary, but there's a world out there. There's people out there longing for connection. And those little interactions when we're at the coffee shop or the grocery store can also have a profound impact on our happiness score.
I know that when I'm looking back on my 30 years working in schools, some of the opportunities that I've had to create intentional social events would be things like on Fridays, a group of us got together and we had a salad club. So each week, someone was responsible for creating a salad and providing it for us. And we'd all sit together and chit chat, which was awesome. In other schools, we had some form of exercise, either before school or after school, where we'd all get together, we'd connect. One of us would facilitate like a yoga class, or we'd play volleyball, or we'd play badminton. And that was just a really great opportunity to decompress and to have a structure in place to transition either at the beginning of our workday or at the end of our workday. And I really enjoy the times where we get together with the social committees in our schools and we organize a lunch together, or we do something together after school, like a dinner, or we go out for coffee. I know at one school, I would reach out to different teachers, and we would all go out for walks for half of our lunch hour. So we would make sure that we had our lunch, and then we'd go walking. So we'd get exercise, we'd get fresh air, and we'd be able to, again, connect, talk to each other, get to know each other. It doesn't work that, and I'm going to be straight up and honest about this. I work in 3 different schools, and I don't know the name of everybody in my school that I work with, like my colleagues. And that's a missing. And I'm going to take that on in regards to getting to know everyone in schools after this conversation. I see that parents can automatically connect with like their parent advisory committee that they have in each of their schools. My schools typically have about 500 kids in them, so that's 1,000 parents. And right there, you've already got a community created. It's just up to you now to create events to bring the community together and those people who want to create community and to strengthen their social connections with each other. I do see parents when they drop off their kids and pick up their kids that they have little groups of 3 and 4 where they seem to connect every day, see how things are going, share things. So I see that as an opportunity for parents to connect. And there's also opportunities for them to connect intentionally, where they actually set events and dates and times for things.
Yeah, there's we're dropping kids off and we connect haphazardly, which is super valuable as well. And there's opportunities there to create something a little bit more structured if the interest is there. But I also love what you said about spelling each other off so teachers can go for a half an hour walk at lunch or meet after work or have a salad club. We've created a Moai at work. I work in post-secondary, so it's a little bit different than a school with elementary school kids or even a high school. But we've created Moai at work because the work we often do is very siloed. And so what you were sharing about how you don't actually know all of the people in each school, your situation's a little different because you travel from school to school. But even I would argue that some of the people that stay at one school don't necessarily connect with people on a deeper level. So there's an opportunity there to find the little openings within the day-to-day schedule to fit it in and to create those opportunities to connect and bond. And I think it does wonders for the school community. It strengthens the teacher relationship. And then ultimately, when teachers feel fulfilled and connected, they're able to better show up for the kids. And that's really what it all comes down to. We can't help if we're not nurtured and feeling like our plates are full or our hearts are full. I know your plates are full, but we can't nurture others when our hearts aren't full as well. I think it's really important to find the little openings within the school schedule. I realize it's packed really full. There's extracurriculars and people are coming in early. But when teachers are able to connect and bond and nurture that social connection, they're much better able to show up for the students. And that's ultimately what it's all about. So I know that's why you all got into teaching, is because you care about the kids.
Yeah. And what I see is, look, a life worth living is a life in which we are connected to other people in a deep and profound way. I'm not going to remember job much or the things that I have in my life. I can't take those with me when I cross over. And honestly, at my celebration of life, it's going to be people talking about who I was as a person, who I was to them, and the kind of connection that we had. It's not going to be the things that I have. It's not going to be just the job that I have, the car that I drive. So really, I think what's happening is that I think we've lost the ability to prioritize a connection in our lives. And that has a profound impact. And when we acknowledge that and create intentional connections with people, that changes everything in the way that we relate to ourselves, we relate to our lives, and we relate to each other. And as parents and teachers, we want to be able to model a balanced life, which includes social connection. And we want to be able to model this to our kids that we teach and care for, because we want them to grow up to be socially connected people. I think it's really easy when we're socially disconnected to not care about our people out there and social causes and get involved. And Nonprofit organizations don't work unless people care about other people. And I think this is what 𝐻𝐸𝐺 care about other people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Maria. We need each other more than ever. The world is so fractured, disconnected. We have to stick together. We need a support group of some sort who's got our back, who can support us through the times that when life gets hard. And I think that's really well said. Social connection is as essential to our survival as food, shelter, and water. So we can't live without it. We would die if we didn't have each other. So it is so crucial that, like you said, I agree. I think we've lost our ability or just the understanding of how important it is to foster and nurture that intentional social connection, because without it, we couldn't survive. We need each other. And yeah, that's well said, Maria.
Thank you so much, Kristie, for coming on my podcast today. Thank you so much, Kristie, for engaging us in a really juicy conversation about the critical importance about social connection. Look, ultimately, human beings are social beings. And at some point in life, with all of our responsibilities, with the impact of technology, we've lost our way. And you are representing us to what is important in life in regards to being connected to other people, to admitting that we're lonely and doing something about it. I admire your passion for addressing loneliness through Modern Moai events that create real in-person community connections. And to our listeners out there, education isn't just about teaching, and parenting isn't just about bringing up kids. It's really all about human connections that we build. And if you're a parent or a teacher struggling to connect, whether it's with your kids in your life or with other people, I see you. And with 30 years in education, I've supported families through every challenge imaginable. Now I bring that experience to coaching, helping you move through whatever you're facing powerfully. Reach out to me at mariaphoenixinspiredcoaching.com to schedule your free discovery call, because we know when adults thrive, kids do too. And as always, remember that every trial is a triumph in disguise. Until next time, take care, keep showing up for the kids and for each other, and go and build social connections. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.